Hello, you wonderful people. Good evening and welcome back to English Right Now with me, British English teacher Roy. It is good to see you. Hello, Farzan. Hello, welcome. It is good to see you. It's good to have you here. Now, before we start this lesson, tell me in the chat, where are you joining from today? Where are you watching from? Let's see how international we are tonight, because that is the theme of this lesson. Let me know where you're watching from, because tonight we are talking about British culture and vocabulary at the airport. Hello, Steffi. I believe you've just been in an airport. How are you tonight? Hello, Sarah. I'm very well. How international are we? Italy, as usual. You wouldn't have been a couple of days ago, though, would? I do. It's Pakistan. Sarah, you're in the US. I know. We've got the US viewership. Madrid, Derby. Cartagena, you know that I was born in Nottingham, but I grew up in Derbyshire. I grew up in a small town called Ilkeston until the age of about 6. Then I moved south. Who went south? It didn't go south. USA. Hello, Mabel. Welcome. Welcome. There's lots of different countries represented here. Lots of different people. Bonsoir. Hello, Mr. King and everybody. Hello, Giuseppina. Hello, Isabel. Hello, Marie-Christine. You're going to enjoy tonight, Marie-Christine, because Captain Roy is definitely making an appearance, because I don't have a hat. Oh, should have bought a hat. But wherever you are in the world, wherever you're watching from right now, imagine this. The next time you land in the UK, you will walk through an airport confidently, understanding every word that people say to you. Joe Simpson is here. Help me, Doc. Speaking of which, there is a person here who lives in Derby, and 2 now. Hello, Joe. And Deborah from Porto Alegre, boa noite. So, have you ever noticed that sometimes you can understand English perfectly, but then sometimes we say things in British English, in real life, that's a bit, I don't want to say weird, but it's a bit different to what you expect. You're at the airport. It's the worst case scenario. My wife can attest to this. You're at the airport. You're a bit tired after your flight, and somebody says, "Oh, could you pop your bag on the belt for me?" You think, what? Pop what? Pop where? Pop who? Pop how? Pop? What's going on? British people use a lot of polite, soft, and sometimes, let's be honest, quirky expressions, especially in airports where friendliness and formality actually mix together. We're going to talk a lot about the culture. So in this live lesson tonight, we're going to decode real British airport and airplane language, what you'll hear, what it really means, and how to answer confidently and naturally. And by the end, you'll feel like you can walk through Heathrow, Gatwick, or Manchester Airport, even East Midlands Airport, Luton, I could name them all, but I won't. Bournemouth, Southampton, it goes on and on and on. Like you're a local, with calm, confidence, and a nice little smile. Now, I will say at this point, this lesson will be live on YouTube for, well, not live, but it will be present on YouTube for 1 week, after which it will be removed from YouTube. Last week's lesson has just been removed, or will be removed, and it's added to something we call it the British English Lesson Library. I'll tell you more about this at the end of the lesson, but it's a collection of all my lives, plus some exclusive content that's coming. I'll tell you more about it at the end, but part of that is the English Right Now community, where you can meet wonderful people from around the world. And we are meeting people here, like Elena from Argentina. I've been to Argentina, beautiful country. Grazie alla porta. Cynthia, welcome. Grazie alla porta, lovely to see you as always. So, who am I? Let's do a little bit of who am I. We'll talk more about the British English Lesson Library at the end. But my name is Roy Woodhouse, in case you don't know. My sort of name on YouTube is British English Teacher Roy. You can find me on my main channel. And for nearly 15 years, I've helped thousands of students. I think it may be closer to 16, but I need to start counting. Maths, never my strong suit. I've helped thousands of learners around the world, not just speak English, but feel at home in British English. I've taught in places like London, Cambridge. I've even worked in Brazil for several years. And I've even worked for the BBC. But what I love most is helping you to understand the culture behind the words. Because in my opinion, a language is more than just a selection of words. It is culture. Because when you understand how British people speak and the way they're thinking. You connect. You don't just communicate. Now, before we walk through that airport together, hopefully one day we will, let's start with some key words that will make the whole journey a little bit easier from check-in to landing. I'll give you a British word, we'll talk about what it means, and I'll give you a sort of example sentence. Hello, Tanya. Welcome. You're a jet setter. You're going to love this lesson. Ready? So let's go. First of all, we have luggage. Straight off, luggage. In British English, we normally say luggage, although there is something to say. We normally say luggage, not baggage. Baggage is more the American word. Okay? So luggage isn't just a bag. So I don't say, oh, that's my one luggage over there. It's actually uncountable. It refers to your collection of bags, if you like. That's my luggage. If you want to specify how many things you have, we would say a piece of luggage. So 2 pieces of luggage, 3 pieces of luggage. We do not say 2 luggages. Doesn't sound right. So I don't have much luggage, just a small suitcase. The suitcase is the individual item that we often carry on. Sometimes they are massive. I went to Benidorm recently. I took a very small suitcase with me. And it's only because it was included in the price. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered. Because normally, I only travel with hand luggage. So your hand luggage, it can be a small backpack. Sometimes we say cabin bag, but it's not common. Hand luggage is the most common one. And carry-on tends to be more American, but some people do use it again because these places are international and things creep in. But hand luggage is the stuff that you keep with you on the plane. I usually travel, if I can, with hand luggage only. And then in a case, I'll maybe put some extra things that aren't really essential. So here, please place your hand luggage in the overhead locker. This is quite common. We have those overhead lockers on the plane. There will be some things about planes, but we're going to keep that for another lesson to really get into it. But sometimes you can store it under your seat as well. One thing that British people dread, we're going to talk about culture, scales. Scales are a machine or a thing. Yes, absolutely. We have luggage trolleys. So you can put your luggage on a trolley and push it round. The Americans would call it a baggage cart. We say luggage trolley. Hey, welcome, Mabel. So scales are things that we can measure our own personal weight. And every time I stand on it, I'm like, oh my God, I should never eat ice cream again. But we also have scales at check-in. And these are used to weigh your suitcase. So somebody may say, could you pop your bag on the scales for me, please? So pop here, it doesn't mean, it means put. So it's like a quickly put it on the scales for me. Pop. We sometimes say pop to the shops. That means go somewhere very quickly. Here, it means put them somewhere for a short amount of time. Could you pop your bags on the scales for me? There's many more words for us to go. A boarding pass. So when you purchase your ticket, that is a ticket. Hello, Maria. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, because you have like Scala or Scada, is it? Yeah, I know what you mean. So a ticket, you buy your ticket. When you go to the check-in where you put your bag, you also take your ticket and your passport, and they give you a boarding pass. This is basically a document provided by the airline during check-in. Now, you could get this if you check in online or if you check in at the place, and it basically gives permission for the passenger to enter a restricted area of an airport and board the plane for a particular flight. So that's your boarding pass. And quite commonly they'll say, can I see your boarding pass, please? That's all they want to see. Once you've shown your tickets and you've shown your passport, you do need to show your passport as well. But boarding pass will help you get into the secure areas. Got to include this one, queue. Queue. We say queue, we don't say queue, ridiculous waste of letters, but it is a very British word for line. So quite commonly they'll say, join the second queue for security, join the third queue, blah, blah, blah. And please note that jumping the queue is practically a national sin, please. Security check. We usually just refer to the area as security. I'm going through security. But you could call it security control or security check, but most people just call it security. And this is where your bags, your hand luggage is scanned and your body is potentially scanned. And you go through this metal detector. So they check if you've got any metal. It's called security. And they'll say things like, any liquids, laptops, or electronics in your bag, please put them in a separate tray. So you put them in trays, and that's called security. Sometimes we have to go through passport control, not usually when we're leaving, but more when we're arriving. So this is when we are arriving at the airport from our trip. And passport control is basically where they check your passport and ask you about your visit. And they'll often say, what is the purpose of your trip, business or pleasure? You might say, I'm visiting families. I'm visiting family. I might just have a look round. Of course, some people can go through electronic gates when they arrive, and it sort of means that we don't have to go through this, but they can still ask. Customs is basically, well, we'll talk more about this a little bit later on, but this is where you declare anything that is over the allowance. So you're allowed to bring in a certain amount of alcohol, cigarettes, even cash. If you bring more than that, you should tell somebody. And that area is called customs. And also they find out if you're bringing anything illegal in. I'm very well, thank you. Yes, they only want electronic boarding passes, which is a nightmare that we'll talk about in a little bit because, yeah, phone charges. So that is, they ask you, do you have anything to declare? Which I once said, no, only my genius, as a joke. And then they detained me for about half an hour, probably because they thought I was lying. But gate. This is where your flight departs. So you will wait in the main area. Once you've gone through security and everything else, you've got your boarding pass, you go into this kind of, it feels like a shopping center if you go to Gatwick. It really does. There's pubs and there's all range of coffee shops. There's a Lego shop, a Harrods, and you wait there and suddenly it tells you your flight leaves from gate, whatever. And then suddenly you have to run. It's awful. We'll talk about that later on in this lesson. But we often say your gate will open at 5:20. And of course, one of the most important things where you can put on your socks, if you need travel socks, is the loo, which is the most British word for toilet. And quite commonly we say, well, there's a bit about this as well, but use the loo before you go to your gate. Take off and take off with a hyphen. You'll notice I've done two here. Take off, when it's two separate words, is the verb, and take off with a hyphen is the noun. So this is when the plane leaves the ground, to take off. Can anybody tell me? Oh, mate, that is definitely what's coming up. Joe, there is nothing more British than the airport pint. Although I can't do it anymore. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why towards the end of this lesson. So, yes, never joke to people that can stop you from entering a country or take things away from you is what I've learned. But there you go. I learned the hard way so that you don't have to. So quite commonly they'll say, please fasten your seat belt. We're ready for takeoff. And that is the point. The hyphen is, technically these words are shorter one. We'd commonly call it a dash as well. Although there is the longer dash, there is another lesson there to be had. But I will be talking in our live sessions about hyphens very, very soon. Last call, please. Oh, God, I hate that. It gives me anxiety. Hello, Sukran. Landing is the opposite of takeoff. It does. But no plane is ever popular with me, Farzan, because I hate flying. Landing is when the plane touches the ground. And that's the point when I start finding any deity that I can thank, any god that I can thank, honestly, because I panic with flying. I hate it. So landing, I think I've even thanked Obi-Wan Kenobi once. That was that. Yeah. So it's when the plane touches the ground. So I often hear things like, cabin crew, please prepare for landing. Fasten your seatbelt, as I've just said, means close your seatbelt. Basically, put it together so that you're secure. They often say, please fasten your seatbelt and make sure your tray table is up or your tray is up. Linda's had a worse time at airports than I have. Yes, we use hyphens nouns. We use them in other ways as well. Clapping when you land is a no-no. No. Oh dear, no, I can't deal with it. It makes me cringe. You're on holiday at the moment, or you were? I think I saw in Maldives or somewhere. I think maybe could be making that up. In-flight service are the food and drinks served through the flight. They often come around and say, "Would you like tea or coffee?" And I just say, "Wine." No, not commonly. We'll talk about this. Cabin crew. Okay. Cabin crew. What's the difference between cabin crew and flight attendant? A flight attendant. Well, the cabin crew is basically everybody who works with the passengers. It could be cabin managers. It could be people that are dealing with the passengers, taking the food round. Everybody is referred to as cabin crew. I've been on a few flights where they clap, and I think I'm not on the right. No. We do say cruising at 37,000 feet. It's like when they are not accelerating, not decelerating. It's the constant speed where they're not trying to ascend or descend at that time. We do use that word, yes. And flight attendant, it could be the individual person who comes round. So you have cabin crew as a general and flight attendant as an individual person. One person, the flight attendant, we wouldn't say that's a cabin crew member maybe, but we'd normally call them a flight attendant, and they're often quite junior. A flight attendant is often quite junior. So they often hear these words, our cabin crew will be coming round shortly with refreshments, and then they come round with perfumes and God knows what to sell. And then we have the captain's announcement. Hello. We have the captain's announcement. This is the message from the pilot before takeoff or before landing or sometimes during the flight. And the reason I laughed at this, and I think Marie-Christine will like this, is quite often on the course. We have several courses, the Ultimate British Pronunciation Guide and several courses. There's a bundle at the moment that we'll talk about that another time, but quite often not quite often, every now and then I say, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. There is a new lesson been added to the course. I just like the idea of being a pilot, but without the flying. And it usually begins like that. Good evening or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We are currently cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet, and we expect to be in Madrid at 3 p.m. local time. The weather there is so on. Could have made a good captain. Few extra words you might need. Turbulence is basically when the plane goes up and down and everybody goes, oh God, well, I start praying. So like this, it's horrible. That is turbulence. We could say a turbulent flight, check-in, get on or get off. You could say embark or disembark, but normally we say get on the plane or get off the plane. Check-in, as I say, is that place where you get your boarding pass and you put the luggage that is going down in the plane. So that is called the check-in. The airline is the company. Let me know your favorite airline. Maybe it's Lufthansa, maybe it's Ryanair, maybe it's EasyJet, maybe it's British Airways, who knows? But the airline is the company. Let me know which company you like flying with. I would probably say none. Arrivals, that's the place where your plane arrives at the airport. Is that a company? Eva, is it a company? Never heard. So arrivals is where your plane arrives. So when you arrive after your flight, you will leave the airport in arrivals. It sounds a bit weird. So your friends, your family, the taxi driver may meet you with that little kind of sign saying Roy, my name often misspelt for some reason. It comes out as Boy or Ray or Rob or something, I don't know. And they hold it there and I have to work out who the hell is Rob Woodlouse? BMI baby, anyway. I do. I remember Excalibur as well. Don't know if you remember those. Board is another way of saying get on the plane, to board the plane. Your boarding pass is that piece of paper or the digital thing that allows you to get on the plane. Your boarding time is the time when you're allowed to start entering the plane. Oh, we've got a Lufthansa fan. My dog flew Lufthansa. When she came from Brazil, my dog flew on Lufthansa all the way from Brazil to Germany. I don't know what I think she flew from Lufthansa from Germany to England as well. I have always wanted in my life to go to Germany. I've always wanted to go to Germany. My dog has been to Germany. I have not. Sad. I'll have to drive there though next time. So we book a ticket. This is the verb we use. When you buy your ticket, you book it. You can book your ticket. It means you've reserved your place and you have paid for it. Sometimes you can book at the airport, but it's not recommended. It's better to book in advance. Business class is technically it's a place where people who are traveling for business sit, often towards the front of the plane. And the tickets are more expensive. They often come with more leg room, maybe a bit of sleeping, maybe a bit of area that you can do some work. It's technically for business purposes, but it's just possibly a little bit better if you like a bit more space. Thank you. You're very welcome, Maria. There's more to come. There's more to come. Oh, this lesson is going to go on. So we have the conveyor belt, the carousel, and baggage reclaim. Okay. So we need to talk about this. So your conveyor belt is basically when you put your thing on the scales, your bag, your suitcase on the scales, and they say, pop it on the scales for me to weigh it, and then you panic going, God, please don't be over 23, please don't be over 23, please. That's the moment. We'll talk about that anxiety later on. You pop it on a little conveyor belt and then it disappears. They put a tag on it and it goes, mee, and you hope you're going to see your bag at some point. So a conveyor belt is basically, it's like a kind of moving platform for your bags. That's what it is. It can also be used in factories and things like this. Don't worry, Eva, and hello, Freddy. A carousel is something that goes round and round. Some of these words might be more familiar for you. Oh, Joe, I've got a story about this. I need to remember this. I have got a great story. They're at home, Freddy. They're at home. My wife and child are currently at home enjoying pizza, I'd imagine. Well, my son will be anyway. And a carousel is where we get our luggage, hopefully, when it arrives. Now, notice that I've said baggage is American and luggage is British. Fine. Okay. But if you read the Heathrow website, it talks about baggage process, baggage thing, baggage that, baggage this, and it'll say baggage, lost baggage as a title. Why would they do that? Well, it's international. So they're very aware that some people might not know the term luggage. Luggage is a very British word. So actually what they do is they go, lost baggage. If your luggage is lost, and I was like, that's really funny. Even to the point where normally we would say baggage reclaim, but they say baggage claim. So baggage claim or baggage reclaim is where you get your luggage. So we do use that word sometimes when it's in a more international setting, but naturally I would call it my luggage. Baggage is the American word, but they use it in the airport. I've even got a little bit here. LHR, which is London Heathrow, baggage claim. This comes from the website. Heathrow baggage claim areas are located in the arrival hall. Follow the signs. So it goes on and on and on. And it goes, once you've retrieved your bag. Oh, there we go. This is very good. It mixes the two terms. Heathrow baggage claims, claim areas are located in the arrivals hall. Follow the signs on the digital signage to find your flight's conveyor belt. So you've got to look and find which one works for you. Then proceed to the indicated belt number where your luggage will be delivered. So they've got both of the terms. So they're covering We say lost and found. It's the other way around, lost and found. And wait for it to appear. Once you have retrieved your bags, you can use the trolleys. That's a British word, not carts, trolleys in the reclaim area. So they've used the American term. I think Americans tend to use baggage claim. We tend to use baggage reclaim because we're claiming it back. But they've used both American and British terms on their websites. It helps international travel. So be aware that you may just encounter American words, not all of them, certainly not spellings. But they're in international settings like this, airports are a bit different. Delayed means late. I'm just having a moment there where I'm thinking of all the delayed flights. Every time I caught a flight from Belfast, it was always delayed. Every time. Departures is the place you go to when you're leaving to go on a trip. So you arrive in arrivals and you depart in departures. It makes sense. But please make sure that if you are getting on the flight, you need to look for departures. Don't get lost. Some of these words are going to be easy. Economy class is my class. This is the cheapest price. Usually there's less space than business class. And overall it's cheap, but it might not be as enjoyable as, say, first class, which is the most expensive. So you've got economy, business, first, which is basically like first, second, third class. But they don't call it that because third class sounds awful. Economy sounds far better. First class is the most expensive area. You got a lot of space to move. The seats are bigger and service is better, apparently. It's another world, apparently. Let me know if first class is better. I've never flown it. I would love to fly it, even though I don't like flying. Maybe a short distance. I'm not that bothered. A long haul flight is just a very long flight. It's a long distance in one go. So when I fly to Brazil, in the part when I've flown, I quite commonly have a long haul flight to Sao Paulo and then an internal flight from Sao Paulo to Belo Horizonte. On time is what you hope to hear. That means that they are not late. Yeah, some people use executive as well for first class as well, or it can be slightly different. They can sometimes have just two classes and call it economy and executive, because first class is a little bit of a loaded word. Yes, domestic flight is when it's inside your own country. So I could take a domestic flight to Newcastle from Southampton, should I wish. Air hostess and air steward. Sometimes I've heard it. We tend to use flight attendant because it's gender neutral these days. But this, yeah, that's what I say. Oversized baggage or oversized luggage. That shouldn't say baggage. I cut that word. Oversized or overweight. These are two words that you never. Yes, priority. It's living the dream, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Premium economy class. They make up these words to make you feel better about your life, don't they? It's the same way that there's no small in certain restaurants. It's a medium. Or you get the large and then the extra large and the supersized. It's all about marketing, really, isn't it, I suppose? You do have to pay an extra fee. If your bags are too big, as in oversized, or if your bags are overweight, as in too heavy, you often have to pay an extra fee. And sometimes, apparently, they can refuse to take it. So you see these people, and I say you see these people, I've been this person, taking things out of my suitcase, going, oh, I'll just leave, I'll leave that, put that in the bin. It's too much. I don't do it anymore. I make sure that my bags are underweight and the correct undersized. But in the past, I have been one of those people. Also, adding 15 layers to stop the weight of the bag is awful. A stopover is if you're flying on a long haul flight, you have a stop in another country. So quite commonly, if you're flying from Europe to Australia, you might have a stopover in Dubai. Americans call it a layover. We call it a stopover. Visa. Sometimes you will need a visa. It's a special document that gives you permission to enter the country. A lot of you will know this. Some people will need visas, and some people will need non-visa waivers, which is almost like a visa. It's kind of a document to say you don't need a visa, but you don't want one. To enter America, we need a ESTA. I think it's called. It was called an ESTA. I'm not sure anymore. An ESTA, which is a non-visa waiver. So British people need to fill out a document online to say they're not looking to stay. So yeah, so there's lots of different types. There's lots of different types of visas. This lesson could go on for 4 hours. 4 hours. Yeah, you can have a direct flight. I don't know if you can get a direct flight to Australia though for England. The next podcast will be on Friday, tomorrow, and we'll be talking about Penny Lane, the Beatles. That'll be me. I'll be talking with Rob about the Beatles. Imagine. And finally, immigration is where you go through. Should you need a visa, or should you be from a country that potentially needs to go through passport control? So for example, when I came back from Benidorm, I didn't need to go through immigration because, number one, I'm British. So I went through these electric kind of very George Orwellian devices where I put my passport down, it scans my face, and you stand there like. And then it's more about tomorrow's podcast will be more about the life and times of the Beatles, the words of the Beatles, but songs will get a mention as well. The impact they had on British culture. So immigration, should you need to go through immigration? So my wife doesn't now. She's married to a British national, and she has a British child. My son definitely doesn't need to go through it. And if she's with me, in the past, she could go through this this process as well. But if you are non-EU entering the UK, EU are slightly different. Certain countries will need to go through immigration, where they basically check what your intentions are in the country. So that's a lot of vocabulary. Now let's talk. Let's make it bigger. Made me too big. There we go. Let's talk about some typical questions or typical things you're going to hear them say. Tickets and passport ready, please. You'll hear this. It's quite direct. It's quite direct. There is something that we need to talk about in terms of directness a little bit later on in this lesson. But check-in is obviously where you show your tickets, you get your boarding pass, or you confirm you've already boarded. You can use those horrible machines that I always feel, I don't like them, I'll be honest. No, let's make it like that. And they say that there's always a person going, have your tickets and passports ready, please. Sometimes they don't say please. It's part of life. Sometimes they don't even say have your. But this is where you need to prepare. You should be ready when you go up to the desk. It saves a lot of time. If you get to the desk and go, oh, I need to find my passport, they're not going to enjoy that process. They're going to potentially be a bit annoyed. Thank you. Now, even if you give them your ticket, you give them your passport, you give them a boarding pass, they sometimes ask you, where are you flying today? I get a feeling that's so you can confirm the information. I think it's just a kind of check, just a necessary sort of thing. Are you on the right place? Yes. And they will say, open it up on the photo page. It's basically about being efficient. Where are you flying today? Benidorm. Okay. Yep. Okay. We've got you. And they find it. I had this experience a few weeks ago. No. They ask you, do you have any bags to check in? So when they ask you, where are you flying today? You say, I'm flying to Benidorm, or I'm flying to Guadalupe, or I'm flying to wherever you're flying. Let me know some recommendations of where I should go on holiday next. Potentially without flying would be lovely. I love boats, I love trains, I love cars. I don't have wings. Ibiza is a beautiful place. Yeah, I prefer talking. I totally agree. I think communication with people is the communication is underrated these days because everyone's like, "I'll just do it online. I'll just tap, 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 tap." And there is a dying art of talking to somebody. Sardinia, 100%. They are. In fact, I find them quite stressful. I think airports are the happiest and saddest place on the planet. They're the happiest and saddest places on the planet because on the one hand, you see people reunited and they are hugging and they're kissing and they're crying with joy. And then in the departure lounge, you often see husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends being separated. And you see a lot of tears there as well. And it's very, very sad. You know, I remember sitting at too many airports. I'm going, here we go. Start to get emotional. But I remember sitting at too many airports with Luciana, waiting for my flight to take me away again. So I didn't know when I was going to see her next. And yeah, it kind of is devastating, really. But at the same time, that anticipation of going through passport control, speaking in Portuguese, going, yep, yeah, just stamp it. I don't care. And I'm not. I mean, why are you here? I'm here to see my. Well, it would have been my future wife at that time. And then going through arrivals and seeing her there was just magical. So they're the happiest and saddest places on the planet, but they're all stressful, I think, for most people. I always say that I love being away on holiday, but I like nothing about going away. The moment I leave my house to the moment I arrive, I hate. Not hate, but I just find it too much. The Maldives, I would like to try the Maldives, maybe. It's a bit far. It's a lot of plane journeys, a lot of plane journeys. But yeah, I often find it, you know, I often say from start to finish, the journey, woof. But once I'm there, I'm happy. Once I was in Benidorm, I was like, yeah, I'm in Benidorm. I'm okay now. But the whole process, if I could have just teleportation, ladies and gentlemen, would be a great thing for me. And the final question we often get asked is, do you have any bags to check in, which is the ones that need to go into the hold of the plane, which is the storage of the plane, the hold. And you might just say, yes, just one, or no, not today. If you're only traveling, like Marie-Christine with her backpack or a small bag, hand luggage. And they'll say, could you place your bag on the scales for me, please? It's soft, it's polite, but it's relatively direct. Could you place your bag on the scales for me, please? Could you pop your bag on the scales for me, please? It's just very quick. And you are expected to act. British politeness often comes through with these kind of softness. Could you? Would you mind? If you could. But you're still expected to do it. And instead of saying, what? Say something like, oh, excuse me, sorry. Could you repeat that? What did you say, sorry? These kind of things. Add a few more words. It sounds more natural than, what? It's a bit blunt. At security, you'll hear questions like, any liquids or laptops in your bag? So some airports will expect you to remove your electronic devices from your bags. And you have a tray where you put your bag, your belt. You practically get naked, to be honest. There's not much left on. You spend more time getting dressed and undressed in security than you do in your own home sometimes. And you're taking all the things out, then you have to repack your bag as they go through the X-ray machines. Pop your jacket off for me. Another use of pop it off, means take it off quickly. Sometimes they'll have, you don't tend to hear terms of endearment, but you might hear something like mate, but it's more like pop your jacket off for me, please. And step this way. Step this way means come this way. Usually when they want you to walk into that machine and it's detecting if you've got anything bad on you. So we need to talk about the tone of voice here. Let me have a drink. The tone might sound quite serious. Step this way, please. Any laptops, any laptops in your bag, get them on the tray, put them on a tray, pop your jackets off for me, please. These kind of things. It tends to be a bit direct, and we need to talk about that. It's not rude, it's not anger, it's British formality. And keeping calm and giving a calm smile always helps. So let's talk about directness at the airport. Okay, there are a few things we need to talk about. So British people are quite famous for being quite indirect, especially in social situations when they want to maintain neutrality and they want to keep social order. They want to not appear rude. However, there are two things we need to talk about in an airport. First of all, in a situation like this, directness is more efficient. Would you mind just taking your bag out? Would you mind just taking your laptop out of your bag? That's quite, well, it's quite polite. But somebody saying, can you take your laptop out of the bag? You know, they might add a please. It's not anger. It's just being direct. It is efficient. It is getting it done. Efficiency overrules indirectness. It's the same in the workplace. If there's machines, there are machines everywhere, and it's dangerous. Nobody's going to go, oh, would you mind just moving your hand? Oh, no, you've lost your hand. You lost your arm. No, they'll go, move your hand away, please. Or move your hand away now. It's not anger. It's keeping order. Exactly, Graciela Porter. It is keeping the momentum. These places, Heathrow Airport, there's something like the population of the UK, I think I read once, goes through Heathrow, or more people go through Heathrow than there are in the entire country, both coming into the country, both passing through. The number of, the volume, the sheer number of people that go through Heathrow, they don't have time to go, hi, would you be so kind as to just, sorry, if you could just remove that laptop. We've got 400 people behind us all needing flights, but would you do that? No, they don't have time. So it's efficiency. Here, directness is efficiency. It's not aggression. Second to this, they have to be direct. Absolutely. Because they're also dealing with some second language speakers. Some of their English will be good and some others, their English may be not so good. If you say, excuse me, would you mind please taking the laptop out of the bag, please? There are a lot of words. If somebody's English is lower or okay, but not overly developed, saying that could really confuse them. If I use the second conditional structure like that, if I asked you to take your bag out, if I asked you to just take your laptop out, would you mind? A lot of fluff. So saying something like passports and boarding pass, or passports and tickets ready, there is less room for error or mistake. That's the thing. So at the end of the day, you've got to imagine they are dealing with an international crowd, and quite often the people that work in places like Gatwick and Heathrow, they are also second language speakers of English. Not all of them, but some of them that work there are from other countries as well. So you are dealing with a very international environment. So directness is kind of the most efficient way to get through things. So now let's talk about passport control. If you need to go through passport control when you arrive at Heathrow, maybe they'll ask you, what is the purpose of your visit? In other words, why are you here? It's not rude. It can be. It can be quite stressful. It can be quite intimidating, but it's not designed to be. It's designed to be, as Sarah says, concise and efficient. Its politeness is not removed. It's just directness overrules indirectness. So it's still polite. They're not being rude. They're not trying to be rude. Some people will be rude, to be honest. I've had situations, but there you go. Samir, I would say that no amount of employees could move that many people through Heathrow. It's simply the volume of people going through these machines and doing the tickets. They don't have enough time. You'd have to be there for hours upon hours upon hours. Again, it's not about impoliteness. They're not being impolite. They're just being efficient. What's the purpose of your visit? Marissa wants to know, Joe, did you manage to get drinks in the Maldives? There you go. My son was asked, why do you come to visit London so often? To visit my girlfriend. Fine. What's the purpose of your visit? Business, pleasure. Usually pleasure. Holiday. I'm here on holiday. Then they'll ask you maybe, how long are you planning to stay? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You might need to show proof of your funds to show you've got enough money to stay there for 3 to 4 weeks. They sometimes ask, where will you be staying? At a hotel in London. Now, when my brother-in-law, who is Brazilian, came to visit, he needed a letter from me. It's kind of an invitation letter. And I write him a little email. And it says, I, Roy Woodhouse, will be responsible for all his needs and everything during his stay here, which will be from dump to dump. And then he can show that to the immigration. He has had to show that before. I've had students coming through immigration who have submitted me as a point of reference to validate that they were coming to the school I was working at. And I had this call from a Heathrow official saying, we've got a gentleman here, I can't remember his name, but a gentleman here from, where was he from? Chile. And he says that he's studying in your school. Could you just verify that, please? And I thought, who, what? Oh, him, yeah. Yes. I don't know why. I wasn't expecting the call. And of course, the best thing in this situation is to keep your answers short, clear. It's not a conversation. It's not a chinwag. It's not really a chance to practice your English. It is a check. They are checking that you are coming, you have somewhere to stay, and you are leaving. And they want to know what you're going to do while you're here. On the plane, of course, please fasten your seatbelt, which is put your seatbelt on. We're going to talk about culture in a minute. Cabin crew say prepare for takeoff. So they'll tell the cabin crew to sit down before, you sit down, you get your belts on, and then they sit down. They'll come around and say, would you like tea or coffee? I say neither normally because the coffee is usually awful and the tea is. And then they'll say, we'll be landing shortly. But we're going to talk about culture, British traditions, the airport traditions and the habits. Quite often, British people, I mean, even at 35,000 feet, British announcements stay quite polite and calm. They're never dramatic. It's like, no, hurry up, sit down. It's not that. It's could the cabin crew please sit down? All things like this. Right, let's talk about some airport traditions. Getting there really early. And I mean really, really early. When I flew to Benidorm, I got there about 3 hours before my flight. 3 hours. There was no need for me to get there 3 hours, but I got so into the excitement of it. Let me make me bigger. Oh, there we go. You can't see that, can you? Well, I'll tell them. So getting there very early. This infuriates my wife. My wife's like, we only need to be there an hour before the flight. But I'm like, what if we get late? What if we get delayed? British people tend to quite panic about punctuality. But it's more this idea of missing the flight. Usually you'll find British people get there 2 hours early and then just sit in silence waiting for the flight going, oh, God. So when I went to Benidorm, I think check-in was 2.5 hours before the flight. I was the first. I was there. There were other British, actually, of the British people. There were loads of them there, to be fair. 100% that's coming up. Don't you worry. Why two different mugs? Just in case. So this one has a nice warm, well, it used to be warm, cup of tea. And this one actually is coffee. That's coffee. I've just realized I'm drinking coffee. And this one is a mug of squash. So during these things, I talk a lot. My throat gets dry, and I'd sooner protect my throat to mean that I can do other things as well. So I don't run out of, it's just a preventative method. I don't know why I'm mixing and matching. I've obviously been drinking one and one too. But there you go. So they tend to get there really bloody early. That's what I would say. Luciana gets really angry with me the amount of time I'm sitting at the airport going, I'd sooner be here. I'd sooner be safe than sorry. It's better to be safe than sorry. In other words, it's better to be all okay than miss the flight. So better to be safe than sorry. Which brings me on to packing sandwiches. Quite commonly, it doesn't have to be sandwiches, but quite commonly when British people, they go to when they go to the airport, they will take some food with them. Airport food is so expensive, so ridiculously expensive at times, that a lot of British people like to prepare. And they end up buying bloody stuff anyway. You cannot take your food, your packed sandwiches, through security. So they tend to arrive 3 hours early, eat their sandwiches, wait for security, go through security, and probably eat again after complaining about the prices. And that brings me on to the third cultural point. So they prepare, they have food in check-in, and then they go through and they start to moan about airport prices. They start to moan about, oh my God, this is so expensive. This is unbelievably expensive. It could be the drinks, it could be the pints, it could be anything, magazine, anything. Airport prices are just one of it's a cultural moaning point. So we get there 3 hours early, we eat some sandwiches and check in, and then we go and moan about the prices. In fact, we moan and get stressed about flying in general. This is what I find British people get very anxious about the airport. Not all of us, but there tends to be this general enjoyment of kind of groaning and moaning about the prices, as I say. They tend to hold their passports like it's the winning lottery ticket. So they hold. I constantly keep checking. I see other British people checking. Okay, I've got my passport, like it's disappearing. There's always those horror stories, but people tend to stress about the time, and it's like this kind of almost communal atmosphere. When I was in Gatwick, I waited in this kind of central area with all the pubs and the bars and all that, and then suddenly you have an hour to board your flight. So 1 hour before the flight is due to leave, the gate opens and they go, please go to gate 47 or whatever. And suddenly you're like, where's 47? Oh, my God. And it's a really long walk to gate 47. And you're really kind of, and then you get there and you arrive about 10 minutes before the gates close. So the gate closes about 20 minutes before the flight, or maybe even half an hour. So realistically, you only have about 20 minutes to walk, potentially the whole length of Gatwick is what it feels like. So a lot of British people are like, why don't they tell us earlier which gate it's from? Why don't they give us more give us more warning? So that tends to be a moan. The anxiety of the weight of the bags, the size of the bags, getting to the gates on time, and of course of having your passport. And a lot of people go, not long now, not long now. You hear this all the time. Not long now, not long now. The gate's going to open. Not long now. We'll know which flight. Not long now, not long now. And they wait for the gate board to change. They're like, oh, we're the next. Not long, not long. Go, gate 47, run. You see these families panicking. Where's John? Get John, grab him. Come on, let's go. It's like a military operation sometimes. And quite often you'll see British people loitering in duty free, as Joe said, moaning about the size of Toblerones. But we also tend to, I see a lot of British people, because there's no point really buying duty free to go out of the country. So they tend to loiter around looking for free samples. They get these samples of whiskey and vodka. Oh yeah, I'll try a bit of. I see a lot of people in duty free. They probably don't buy as much because it's more expensive. I don't know if there's a flight from Benidorm to Heathrow or Heathrow to Benidorm, but there is one from Gatwick. I can attest to that because I went on it. And likewise, once you've got to your gate, we tend to queue at the gate as early as possible to get to the front. Somebody, I think it was Joe, mentioned priority boarding. Absolutely, people pay to be the first on the plane. It's like punctuality, but paid punctuality. And finally, before I mention the airport pint, charging the phone. Charging the phone is a, oh God, people are always looking for charge points. They're going, oh, is there anywhere I can charge my phone? Do you know where I could charge my phone? And this is that thing about that electronic boarding pass. So if your phone dies, you are in trouble. Because you can't arrive at the gate going, here's my passport, I promise you, I'm on that flight. So people are like, oh my God, my battery's only got 25%. My battery's got 20, oh my God, I need to charge my phone. This seems to be a common angle, people running around putting their chargers in anywhere they can. They'll be unplugging something to plug it in. These are British pastimes. You may do this in your culture as well. But let me talk about the air. But you can't take a power bank onto a plane. Not always. Some people will remove that. So you can't charge your phone inside the security. The airport pint is a British tradition. The airport pint. We go to the airport As soon as we arrive there, 3 hours early, we will go inside the sort of terminal and look instantly for usually a Wetherspoons, as Joe said earlier, the cheapest pub, which is still quite expensive in an airport. There's one called the Red Lion, I think it is, in Gatwick. And we will go there and we will have our airport pint. It is a airport beer. It is a necessity most British people will go through. They sit there and they will have a drink before they get on their flight. It's almost this tradition, a rite of passage. Now, I said that I don't do it very often these days. The reason for that, quite honestly, is because if I have a drink, a pint or 2 pints, for some reason, and there is no loo near the gate, I will be panicking as I'm on the flight going, oh gosh, I need the toilet. I need the toilet. My bladder is like a 90-year-old racehorse's bladder these days. But a lot of British people will have their pints and then they get on the flight. So I don't tend to do it these days because it makes me more anxious than anything else. But I like my airport pints when I get to the other side. That's when I have my pint. When I get off the flight and I'm like, thank goodness for that. Boom. But the airport pint is something that British people, it's like a vital part of your holiday. It really, really is. And I mentioned earlier as well, not only about the pint, but also about baggage reclaim and lost and found. One time I arrived from Heathrow. Now, these days, your weight limit tends to be around 23 kilos per suitcase on the hold. Some allow bigger, but from Brazil, it tends to be 23 kilos per bag, 2 bags, or 2 suitcases, sorry. And in the past, I think it was 32 kilos, which is really heavy. Anyway, I arrived after a long, long flight from Sao Paulo to Lisbon, Lisbon to London. And I arrived and I waited by the carousel. My suitcases never appeared. They never appeared. And I was like, oh, what's happened? Oh, God. Where are my bags? Where's my suitcase? Oh no, I've got all the things in my suitcases. That's when I started to pack hand luggage, most important things at all times. Anyway, so I went to Lost and Found. There were about 5 or 6 very angry people there. And then more people were coming behind us. Where's my bag? Where's my bag? Where's my bag? We're calling now, we're finding out. And the announcement from the guy was, I'm really, really sorry to tell you this. They've been left on the tarmac of Lisbon Airport. So there were my suitcases. On Lisbon, on the runway, where the plane takes off in Lisbon Airport, and I was like, "Oh God, what am I going to do? I want to go home to the Isle of Wight." They said, "Don't worry, your bags or your suitcases, they will arrive tonight or tomorrow, and we will deliver them to you." And I said, "What, really?" And they said, "Yeah, anywhere in the country." I said, "Brilliant." I said, "I live on the Isle of Wight," and they went, "Oh, okay." Obviously, you need a boat and God knows what. And I think they weren't expecting that. I said, yeah, I live on the Isle of Wight. I gave my address and I left the airport and I said, I remember calling my mum and I said, they've lost my bags. My mum was like, oh, no, you're joking. I said, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. She said, you know what? They've lost your bags. I said, no, they're delivering them tomorrow. I don't have to carry them. They were so heavy, I didn't have to carry them on the tube. I could just walk with just a backpack. I felt brilliant. And then my bags arrived the next day. So for me, that was probably arguably, I shouldn't really wish that my cases get delayed, but I kind of do now. But that's a true story. So this evening, we've talked a lot about vocabulary, airport vocabulary. Somebody requested travel. We will talk more about travel next week again, but a different part. This was just realistically about the airport. Like I say, this lesson will be on YouTube for 1 week. If you enjoy lessons like this, the real life British culture, the expressions and confidence training, then I do have something very special for you. Every week we go live here on YouTube, but after a few days, these lessons disappear from this channel and we move to a private platform that I've called the British English Lesson Library. It's a space where you can access every single live lesson that I've ever taught. Pronunciation, culture, slang, fluency, listening, they're all in one place. My wife describes it, and I love this, as Netflix for your English. And you can join for only £7 a month. It's no contracts, no pressure. £7 a month. I'll put a link there should you wish. No pressure, no contracts. It's just continuous learning at your own rhythm. And like I said earlier, there are some exclusives that are coming to the community. What will be happening is starting, hopefully at the end of this month, next month, short stories. Short stories. Short stories that are basically not made up by me, not made up by some AI rubbish, people like Virginia Woolf, people like Arthur Conan Doyle, and we will be sort of going through them to analyze for the language, for the grammar, for the meaning, for the context, for everything. We'll be analyzing stories, one of those each month, one per month. So like I say, so one of those per month, see how long it goes and see how much you enjoy it. So if you want to keep learning, go deeper and sound more fluent every day, click on that link either in the description or in the chat, and I will see you in the library. And the next time you're at Heathrow and somebody says, oh, just pop your bag on the belt for me, you can say, yep, no worries, because now you get it. Thank you very much for being here today, you wonderful, wonderful people. Hello. I can't remember if I said that at the start. It's been a long time. It's been an hour. You wonderful people, thank you for joining me this evening. I hope this lesson helps you feel more confident, more connected. There is the link to the library below, and a little bit more understanding what the British really mean the next time you travel. Have a brilliant morning, day, evening, night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in our next live lesson. Take care and safe journey to you all.